Your opinion doesn't matter, my husband snapped before grabbing my deployment dog and throwing him out into the rain. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I simply picked up my dog, drove back to my unit, and handed him over to the people who actually understood what he was. 2 days later, my husband was standing in the driveway yelling, "No, that's impossible!" By then, it was already too late. I had been awake for almost 23 hours when it happened. I was still wearing the same hoodie I slept in on the plane, still smelling like jet fuel and recycled air. My dog heard my voice from the driveway and lost his mind at the front door, and when I let him in, he tracked rain and mud across the kitchen tile. That was the whole crime. Muddy paws on a clean floor. My husband looked at that floor like the house was burning down. He had a beer sweating on the counter at 2 in the afternoon, and that tone he saved for when he wanted a fight. I reached for the paper towels. He reached for my dog's collar. That dog slept against my cot through mortar alerts overseas. He knew when my breathing changed before I did, and my husband dragged him across the kitchen by the collar and shoved him into the rain like he was taking out the trash. I didn't yell. Something in me went very quiet, the way it does when a decision gets made below the surface. I dried my dog off with the oven towel, put him in my truck, and drove across town with his head resting on my arm. At the unit kennel, my friend on night shift opened the side gate, looked at the dog, then looked at me. He didn't ask what happened to the dog. He asked if I was okay. I realized he was the first person to ask me that in years. I said no. He said the dog could stay as long as he needed, then walked me to base legal himself because apparently I looked like someone who needed walking. Here's what my husband never bothered to learn in 15 years. The house was mine. I bought it during his unemployed year, my name alone on the deed, because his credit was wrecked from gambling debts he kept calling a rough patch. And the truck he loved more than me had been one missed payment from repossession for almost a year. I had been quietly covering his late payments for 11 months. He never once asked why the bank stopped calling. He just assumed the problem solved itself, the way he assumed everything did. He wasn't always like this. There was a version of him who set the coffee maker before my early mornings and drove 3 hours to bring me my dress uniform for a funeral. I spent years waiting for that man to come back. Somewhere in all that waiting, I became furniture. Useful, quiet, and easy to ignore. Base Legal pulled my records the next morning. The attorney slid a folder across the desk and asked if I recognized the signatures inside. I did not, because they were not mine. While I was deployed, my husband had forged my name on housing paperwork, listed his mother as an incoming occupant, and tried to set himself up as the primary contact on accounts tied to my benefits. There was also an email thread to his sister about moving their mother into my house permanently. One sentence in it stopped my heart cold. "She'll fold before the deadline. She always does." He had built an entire plan on top of my exhaustion. My patience had been mistaken for permission so many times that he'd started putting it in writing. The attorney asked what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to stop fixing what he broke. That was all. No screaming, no revenge. I called the bank and ended the arrangement I had been carrying alone. My lawyer filed the formal notice an hour later. Then I drove home, heated up leftovers, and said nothing because he had told me my opinion didn't matter, and for once, I agreed to let the paperwork do the talking. Day 1, the bank called him instead of me. I watched through the kitchen window as he paced the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, insisting there was some mistake. He came inside, calling the bank incompetent. I said that sounded frustrating and went back to my coffee. Day 2, a flatbed tow truck and a county deputy arrived within 10 minutes of each other. My husband stood in the rain-wet driveway, holding an eviction notice with my lawyer's letterhead while the truck he loved got winched up behind him. He kept screaming that it was impossible, that the payments were current, that this was his house. The deputy, a man who clearly gets paid to ignore that word, just pointed to the deed paperwork with one name on it and explained the timeline. Then my husband looked past the deputy at me standing in the doorway of my own house and asked who was supposed to take care of him now. I picked up my phone and called the kennel to say I was on my way to get my dog. He sleeps on the porch now, gray around the muzzle, head lifting every time a truck passes like he's still on duty. One name on the deed, one name on his tags. His opinion didn't matter. Full story on the channel, linked below.